You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
we will not raw dog reality for that one.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
The Scab Buster.
What have we become?
Keep together strong. Let that be your mantra.
Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mom. I'm your Labor John, and today we are joined by a very special guest who is here every week, actually. But he doesn't mean he's not special. He's special. He's Gabe Christie, of course. Gabe Christie, how you doing?
Oh, you're special too, buddy.
Oh, thank you. My name's Sam. This is Gabe. This is a podcast about the working class history of Philadelphia and the surrounding world. And do we want to jump right into it, Gabe, or do you have anything you want to talk about to the lovely listeners?
There's a new round of Patreon dues buttons that should be coming out shortly. Be sure to join up.
Get your dues in. Get the buttons.
But that's all I have to say.
All right. Okay.
And that's the end of the episode. So
All right. Well,
have a great day.
All right. Play us out, Gabe.
Yep.
Gabe, I want you to play us in. What are we going to learn about today?
Oh, good circling back there. So we're going to talk about the 1913 Hazleton silk strike.
Oh, okay.
Because we've talked about the 1934
Yeah.
and Duplan.
Okay.
The French-owned silk company that was in Hazleton. And as we discussed in that, and I'll give a little backstory on Hazleton, but
Okay.
if you want to go deeper into it, listen to that other episode. But by the 1890s, the town was almost entirely controlled by the coal mines.
Great.
Yeah. And so basically you either worked for the coal mines or you worked in the company stores in the town.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some local businesses, and they wanted to bring in a wider range of industries so that one, people had somewhere to spend money, and two, there were also a lot of unemployed boys and girls who weren't working in the coal mines.
Oh, we can't have that.
No. And so they needed to be exploited for their labor.
Idle hands, Gabe. Idle hands.
Exactly. And then they needed to have some kind of pocket money so that they could then go and buy things in all of the stores.
Of course.
So it's a good cycle.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We don't have company towns anymore. We just have company countries.
Yeah. We've simplified the process.
Yes.
So they got a bunch of factories to come to town. One of them was founded by Mr. Jacob Gerhardt, who's an Austrian fellow who opened a shirt factory there in 1894.
These Austrians coming over and taking our jobs, Gabe.
I know. So he actually came and bought an old candy factory and then retooled everything, or I guess replaced all of the machinery to make shirts, because I don't think there's a lot of crossover between candy making and shirt making.
I was about to say, do you have to completely rehaul everything, or what carries over?
I'm assuming just the building. Maybe the boilers to heat everything. And now we have a cat joining us for the episode.
Great. It's already downhill.
Yeah. So Jacob Gerhardt and Co. Shirt Company was pretty much the second largest employer in the town. And he made a shit ton of money just starting with that one factory. And then he set up sales rooms in New York City. He had other factories in other Pennsylvania towns. Levi is insistent that she sits on my lap right now.
Hi, Levi.
So he, even with Duplan, the giant French silk factory, Gerhardt was still like the second largest employer in the town, second to the coal mines as well, because they'll always be top dog in Hazleton. Now, these factories did all provide some jobs, but conditions in them weren't great. And so there's a quote from Francis H. Nichols, who was traveling around the region, and in 1903 gave this description of what it was like to go to some of these towns in the Pennsylvania anthracite. So, sometimes in a mining town, sometimes in a remote part of the coal fields, one comes upon a large substantial building of wood or brick. When the 6 o'clock whistle blows, the front doors opened, and out streams a procession of girls. Some of them are apparently 17 or 18 years old. The majority are from 13 to 16, but quite a number would seem to be considerably less than 13. Such a building is one of the knitting mills or silk factories that the last 10 years have come to the anthracite.
13-year-old girls, that's fine.
Yeah, and younger than 13. That's who you want working in factories.
That's incredible, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, but they're job creators. They're creating jobs, Gabe.
Yeah, they created a lot of jobs.
I believe sainthood is in his future.
Yes, certainly. We all know Saint Gerhardt.
Gerhardt.
All right. I'm going to move the cat for a third time.
Levi. Oh my God.
Okay.
She's the unofficial guest for the episode.
Well, she's old enough to work in the silk factory. She's
Can
like
you ask
7.
Levi? Can you ask her what her opinion is on child labor?
She's okay with it so long as they're making cat food and or treats.
Okay.
She's not the most class conscious of kitties.
That's okay.
But I should also point out that it wasn't just the garment factories that were exploiting children. The coal fields were also, or the coal mines were also exploiting children. Either actually like digging the coal, or working as breaker boys to break up the large chunks of coal, which we covered when we talked with Mitch Troutman.
Yeah, it's a fine job.
Yeah.
It builds character, I think.
Yes. It's good for you. You need that good like work ethic of climbing into a tower full of coal and hitting it with rocks or hitting it with a hammer for 7 or 8 hours a day.
Bring it back. The kids are too soft these days, Gabe.
Exactly. If you don't have black lung by the time you're 20, what are you doing?
I want to see some breaker boys doing TikToks.
Oh God. Okay, so the conditions in the mills, they're, depending on who you asked, were either good or deplorable. If you ask the owner,
said good. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Never mind. Never mind.
Both Gerhardt and Duplan like prided themselves on having very modern and up-to-date factories. Gerhardt even made a big deal about how he had off-site heating for his factory, which I'm assuming was some kind of like steam loop system.
Okay.
Because he eventually, his factory was right on Maple Street in Hazleton, and he eventually built a bridge and bought the adjoining lot across Maple Street. So he had a factory on both sides of the street and a bridge crossing the street over top.
Okay.
Just to like build a bigger complex. So I'm assuming that on one side, in the older factory, he had like furnaces that then powered everything in the new factory and heated everything in the winter.
Okay.
So it's like,
is that is that much of a when you look at your benefit package, like, and it says heat, you know, It's heated in the winter. Is that something you're like, oh, this is great. This goes to the top of my list.
I mean, if you talk to some of the people working like Amazon warehouses, they're not necessarily heated in the winter.
I
even
guess
today.
so. I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, when you worked in a Target freezer room,
Yeah,
that it wasn't heated.
Yeah, well, I know they should have heated that fucking room.
They should have.
They should have cranked it up.
Yeah. So you had a heated space, which was probably mostly heated to keep the like sewing machines from gumming up and having the oil thicken too much. But
that's probably why.
Yep.
That's the only reason why they heated that place up.
And well, having the separate heating building was considered like the safe and modern thing to do, because then your occupied space didn't have a giant coal burning furnace underneath of it, and it was much less likely to burn down.
That's okay. So,
yeah. And actually, tying it in to some modern Philadelphia politics, a lot of Center City is actually heated by a similar system, because we have a whole steam loop.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's been a battle between the steam loop, or the people that own the steam loop, and PGW over heating the city, and because there was going to be some new construction that PGW wanted to have gas furnaces, and the steam loop guys were like, no, you just tie it into the steam loop because it's significantly more efficient. And also the steam loop has a much lower carbon footprint. Mm-hmm. But that, so as I was reading through all of this, I just got reminded of all of the steam loop arguments. But that
don't tell Elon Musk about the steam loop, though. He'll be like, I'm going to build a steam loop.
Well, he'll somehow make like, well, I guess it would be electric powered, but he would need to find a way to make it like a personal steam loop that bulldozes 2 city blocks to heat one house. Because you can't have it be a public good. It has to undermine everyone for one person. And be made with like an absurd amount of lithium. It's there. It doesn't even have a battery. It's just lithium pipes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We bust on Uncle Elon here, but he's a friend of the show.
Mm-hmm. I sincerely hope he does not know we exist.
Labor John is powered by Tesla.
That's why we break down all the time. Okay, so the getting back on track.
Shit. Okay.
The also pay was really low, because one of the reasons why they were using children in all of these factories was it was a much more exploitable workforce. Because kind of socially, if you were an adult, you were expected to be, especially an adult man, you were expected to be caring for or providing for a whole family. So you would demand a higher wage. And also within like a patriarchal system, you had more authority to demand said wage. Then below an adult man, you would have an adult woman who could work, but were generally like, there were a lot of working mothers even in this period. But they were generally forced to take a lower wage than the men because patriarchy.
Because patriarchy.
Yeah. Then but then you get down to kids and everyone's like, well, you're a 13-year-old, you're not married, and you don't have any children, so you don't need that much. Mind you, they'd have these kids doing pretty much the exact same work as the adults.
I believe that, yeah.
But just at a much lower rate. So
Don't worry, Gabe. It sounds like you're looking back fondly in rose-colored glasses, but I mean, it's coming back, so don't worry. It's fine,
yeah, it's true,
buddy.
We're going to be back
it's
here
fine.
real soon.
The kids yearn for the mines.
Okay, so so you have lots of kids working in these mills. Most of them are teenagers, terrible conditions, and low pay.
Yeah.
And by February 8th, 1913, they got together and decided to do something about it.
All right.
So it all starts with 150 weavers at the Duplan silk mill. They marched out and stated that they objected to the imposition of a fine for spoiled work. Management said that they had never had any formal grievances filed, but who the hell knows if that's actually true. But
okay.
So what, in addition to all of the low pay and the bad conditions and being a 13-year-old being forced to work in a factory, if you made a mistake on the job, you would get fined for it.
Yeah.
You would also get charged for like consumables. So if you were sewing something, you got charged for sewing needles that broke. I don't know if the people working in the knitting mills got charged similarly, but I'm sure there were other little things like that. So it was entirely possible that you were like paying a fair chunk of your wages to your boss for the privilege of working in a factory.
Yeah.
Which also not a great system.
But it's a system, Gabe. At least
it is a system.
Yeah.
We have to, as
work.
Institutionalists, we have to respect the system and let it work.
Honest to God, no, seriously, that's still around.
Oh yeah,
it's not explicit a lot of the times, but I mean, it's the pay to work. I mean, strippers pay to work. You know, it's like they have to pay a couple $100, $200 a night just to get the stage time.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see what the difference is.
No, none at all.
Besides the year, you know.
And there's stuff like the lease to work truckers.
Yeah.
Like, I got a lot of guys driving semis. They're leasing it from the company and then working for that company. It's like, it's a real shitty system.
Yeah, and they're working up to buy their own truck and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all we did was put this onto an app, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's changed. Like, and even like it even gets down to the stuff like having to buy a uniform from your company.
Yeah.
To show up to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's little annoying shit that pisses me off. But so while it was only 150 weavers that started this strike, they were basically like a choke point in production in the factory. So all of the 1,200 workers in the factory were basically had nothing to do now. So they shut the entire thing down because they knew that they were that choke point. And so over the next couple of days, the strike grew. And by Friday, representatives from the Textile Workers Union and the United Mine Workers both approached the striking silk weavers and offered them assistance and organization. And this was fairly common, and especially in Hazleton, as we talked about in the 1934 episode, the UMW was like built into the fabric of the town. That everybody knew a mine worker, and everyone knew someone in the UMW. So then the UMW offering aid and support wasn't an unusual thing here. And because they were also in the American Federation of Labor, they had connections to the textile workers, so they probably brought down the textile workers union representative. Now, textile workers in the UMW came and offered their support, but they actually got turned down by the strike committee when they came to work with them. Yeah. Because they instead declared that they would fight the strike under the banner of the industrial workers of the world.
Yes.
Yep. Now, I can't say any of this for certain, but I'm guessing that this was at least in part inspired by the Lawrence strike up in Lawrence, Massachusetts the year before, which was that was another big textile union or another big textile strike led by the IWW, and was really one of their first big shows of force of Wobbly's organizing textile workers in pretty much the same conditions that they were seeing in Hazleton.
Okay.
So I'm between that and there were some Wobbly organizers in the working with them and organizing behind the scenes before everything went public.
Yeah.
Or I'm assuming there were, because they show up later. So
I wasn't expecting the Wobblies to be in the mix.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I wanted to do this one, because
a surprise, but a welcome one, Gabe.
And we've talked about the Wobblies before, so
I mean, we've only done one Wobbly episode, and that was the interview with Peter Cole.
I guess that's true.
We've never done like a specific Labor John episode on the IWW. They've always been like mentioned in passing. Yeah.
Well, I guess I should explain who they are and why they're different from the American Federation of Labor. So Industrial Workers of the World are a union. They are still around.
Yes, they are.
Founded in 1905. And they are dedicated to, I guess, revolutionary industrial unionism is probably the best way to explain it. That they want to organize all workers regardless of race, gender, sex, creed, nationality, whatever, or craft. So everyone organizing together in order to eventually bring down the capitalist system.
Yeah, a relatively progressive union at its time. And I mean, even until this day, really, to tell you the truth.
And they were also...
the union with the best music. We got to...
Yes.
IWW has the best soundtrack.
Yes. And especially in the 19-teens, they were... they were a pretty major force. And even their actual membership is always really hard to pin down, because most of the time, like, you would sign a union card during a strike, and then once the strike was over, you would never show up to a meeting again.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had trouble like building in that continuity.
Yeah.
But just like the threat of Wobblies being present in a strike was enough to scare the shit out of bosses. So, and always the best music, and they also had a generally very democratic approach to everything. There's later on in the 19-teens, there's some weird like internal fights within the Wobblies, but for the most part, they were a very democratic union, and all of their strikes were usually very worker led as well. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the or like having workers directly involved in bargaining, having everything being approved by a vote of the entire body, all of that was very built into Wobbly style, or the Wobbly style of organizing.
Yeah.
So that's who the Wobblies were, as opposed to the American Federation of Labor, which was a much more conservative union, tended to not want to organize women workers as much. Now, in this period, it was theoretically it was claiming to be a somewhat progressive union, but the AFL unions, some of them were more progressive than others.
Okay.
Like UMW was kind of a progressive union, but one of the big problems that the AFL had was that and to a certain extent still does, is that they didn't, or they allowed individual locals within unions, basically as much autonomy as they wanted when they were being conservative. So like if you had a racist local, AFL or the AFL general board wouldn't come down on you and force you to remove that. But if you were like letting socialists get into leadership, then AFL might come down and be like, hey, you need to get these guys out of leadership.
Yeah. I mean, I brought up the word progressive, but I mean, for the time, that's why I also said relative, because I mean, to be progressive then would also could just mean not being racist.
Yeah,
really,
effectively.
Or hating black people less than the person next to you or something is progressive back then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's relative. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you don't think of the IW, a lot of people don't think of the IWW when you think of like major mainstream unions, because they were out there, a good way, but they had their own thing going on.
Yeah. And they had, is like within specific industries, they had a huge presence. But it was also quite short-lived because the U.S. government decided that it didn't like having a revolutionary workers movement, surprisingly. And I should also point out that one of the biggest difference between the Wobblies and the AFL was the idea of craft unionism versus industrial unionism. So the AFL while certain members of the AFL didn't necessarily follow this as strictly, broadly speaking, if you had a factory that had like weavers, spinners, and garment makers all in one factory, those would be three separate unions rather than having that all be combined into one. Whereas the Wobblies, they might have different branches within the same union local. If you're all working in one spot, you'd be all one union. Even sometimes with like multiple different factories or multiple employers, all within the same union local. So that's a very reductive description of the differences.
No, that was
between the AFL.
I was actually, I think, I'm sorry, that was actually a pretty good description.
Yeah, I think,
and very the difference.
There are literally tens of thousands of pages written on both of these topics. So go read. Everyone listening to this, go read a lot more. We'll give you the highlights. Okay, so that was the Duplan silk mill
back to Hazleton, 1913, right?
Yes. We're now up to February 11th, 1913. So the other major player in this strike are the workers at the Jacob Gerhardt mills that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
And on February 11th, they marched out as well, demanding more uniform pay scales. And however, they marched out of the factory and straight to the United Mine Workers headquarters in Hazleton and asked to be organized under the AFL. So now within Hazleton, you had Duplan on strike, or Duplan's workers on strike with the IWW, and Gerhardt workers on strike under the AFL.
Okay.
but simultaneously.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the strikes also both actually got pretty violent pretty quickly. Because neither Duplan nor Gerhardt closed their factories at first.
Oh, okay.
So that meant you still had workers going in every day, with pickets out front trying to prevent that. Which immediately led to clashes, and
sure
didn't break out into like large scale riots, but there was a police presence pretty much constantly, and from the sounds of it, there were just lots of little street fights that got broken up, but not a lot of arrests. Just it was described mostly as like hair pulling and throwing things at each other.
Okay. So first grade.
Yeah, I mean, these again, we're dealing with a bunch of teenagers fighting each other.
Yeah, so, true. True. There we go. Okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. Okay,
imagine just.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about it now.
Imagine a middle school or high school hallway, and then pit half of the students against each other. And that's effectively what we were dealing with.
Yeah. Okay.
So by February 23rd, the workers at Duplan started to see some progress because a lot of them had actually left town at that point, or had just found other jobs. Because that, again, the strikes without the like more formal union organizations and institution that we have today, strikes were a lot more just like, you just don't have, or you just can't show up to this job, go find other work. Especially because a lot of times there weren't strike funds or anything like that. So
I mean, you could also do that back then. You can just walk into a different place and get another job.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't doing that now.
Yeah.
Unless you search through 50 pages of Indeed.com, send in your resume and your cover letter, wait a couple weeks, have 4 interviews, maybe then, that shit ain't happening today like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just for McDonald's, man. I don't mean I'm not busting McDonald's, but I mean, I'm not busting the workers. I'll bust McDonald's. I'm not busting the workers.
All throughout this strike, the Wilkes-Barre Times, something or other, I can't remember the name of it, right next to all of their information about like the news from the strike, there were always ads for like boys and girls wanted for work in a confectioner's factory.
Oh my god.
Yeah. That,
signed Willy Wonka.
Yeah. Okay, so
step into my chocolate river.
Yes. So the enough of them had left town that the Duplan mills shut down, because they basically they didn't have enough people to work the equipment.
Yeah.
And the manager, a fellow named Bueller, decided to leave town on an extended vacation.
All right.
We
had some PTO.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He took a day
burning
off.
A hole in his pocket. Yeah.
So but this was also a double-edged sword, because now the company is like actually hurting and losing a lot of money from the strike, but that can also mean that unless you win the strike, you might not be getting your job back.
Yeah.
So
that sucks.
They knew what they were doing, and the 1,200 workers at Duplan now were free because they didn't have to fight scabs every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also now going to recognize that stuff was happening outside of Hazleton, Pennsylvania.
No,
I know it's surprising.
Hazleton and the surrounding world, more like.
At the same time, on February 25th, workers in Paterson, New Jersey, at the silk mills over there, went on strike, basically facing the same situation. But that was a general strike of basically all of the silk workers in the entire city of Paterson. And that they were also being led by or working with the IWW. And like all of the big name leadership descended on Paterson to help with organizing there. So you had both Big Bill Haywood and Elizabeth Gurley Flynn and everybody else showing up to Paterson and giving speeches and all that. And Elizabeth Gurley Flynn was actually supposed to come speak at Hazleton on the 28th, because they recognized like Paterson is important, but we also need to go and support these 1,200 workers that are on strike over in Hazleton. So she was.
It's only like a 2.5 hour drive, I think. Really?
Yeah. Or
I don't know. I don't know about. Well, yeah.
Honestly, it's probably shorter. Even back, it's probably a shorter train ride than it would be to drive now, because we've destroyed our transportation system.
No, Gabe. Down, Gabe.
So she was supposed to come talk on the 28th or give a speech on the 28th, but that didn't happen because she got arrested in Paterson on the first day of the strike. Because from what I could gather, she was charged with incitement to riot and told that she had to leave the city, and she refused to leave the city, so they arrested her.
Okay.
Which, fair enough. But they not having Elizabeth Gurley Flynn come talk to them did not deter the strikers at Duplan. And instead, they probably took some inspiration from the workers in Paterson and kind of tried to create a general strike in Hazleton. So they declared on the 28th that they would pledge their full support to the workers at the Gerhardt mills.
Okay.
So even though the Gerhardt workers went with the AFL, the Wobblies at Duplan said, like, we recognize you as fellow workers and we're going to support you in your strike and do everything we can to help you.
Wobbly's doing wobbly things.
Yes. And to demonstrate their dedication, on the morning of the 28th, 2,000 boys and girls from both Duplan and Gerhardt assembled out front of the Gerhardt plant, which was still open at that point, and had a very heavy police presence outside. Both the 16 officers from the
shit.
It was both all 16 officers from the Hazleton Police Department, and then also some state troopers there as well, or state constabulary.
Oh my God, that sucks.
Yeah. There was also probably some like company police, but
that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're facing down 2,000 pubescent children who want better shit who were fucking working in a mill in 1913, I would just leave.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It doesn't matter how much you're getting paid to be there. You just leave. Okay.
Hi, Flinny.
Yeah, he's still upset that we have this Foster with us. Okay, so the Gerhardt plant still being open meant that they were trying to bring in scabs, or there were still scabs coming into work.
Okay.
And pretty much immediately, a massive brawl broke out between scabs trying to get into the plant and the 2,000 children out front.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the strikers claimed that the scabs started it because they hurled epithets at them. So they were calling each other dirty names. And then a fight broke out.
I mean, the kids.
Yeah. So the scabs scattered to nearby porches, climbed up steps, and hid in stores and various, like, just went into people's houses to hide.
Okay. What? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
There was like from their perspective, there was an angry mob out to get them.
I mean,
which,
true.
Fair enough.
I mean, just going to someone's house.
Yeah.
Be like, there are 2,000 children after me.
Yeah.
May I enter?
Can I come in? The strikers also went throughout the town and prevented trolleys and buses from getting into the city because they were bringing in scabs from out of town.
Yeah.
So they went and like blocked the tracks and the roads. And again, the entire police force was out on duty to fight them, but that was only 16 guys.
All 16 of them.
And the police were, however, able to arrest the two lead organizers. It was Frank Daniels, who was a wobbly organizer from New York.
Age 7.
Yeah. And Lewis, well, he was probably like 10 because he was also helping up in Lawrence. And Louis Gergatz, who is a local mine worker and former silk weaver. Both of them were accused of having wobbly connections later on, but I'm unsure about Gergatz. But anyway, they both were given a $1,000 bail, which is about $30,000 today.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Gergatz was freed by Andrew Matty, who was the vice president of the United Mine Workers. So he paid his bail.
All right.
But none of the Wobblies had any money because they were Wobblies. So Daniels was taken to jail because he didn't have anyone to bail him out. But he kind of got his little bit of protest in because when he was being taken into jail, or when he was being put into a car to be taken to jail, there was a crowd of strikers watching everything happen. And so while he was handcuffed, he raised his fist in the air in defiance as they were shoving him in the car, and the entire crowd cheered.
Okay.
So like he got his little thing, his little protest in. And then Gergatz was released from jail later that same day, and was immediately met by a crowd of 100 strikers, who then marched with him to a nearby theater where he started making speeches about continuing the strike and keeping up the fight.
Okay.
So he didn't learn much in his 2 hours in city jail. Okay. Later in the afternoon, though, because this all of this just happened in the first half of the day.
Oh.
In the afternoon on the 28th, the striking girls, and they specifically called out the striking girls from Duplan, started throwing rocks and bricks at the third floor windows of the Gerhardt factory. And that basically they were determined to shut it down and make sure that it wouldn't run anymore. But that terrified the girls inside, understandably, because all of a sudden you have shards of glass raining down on top of you. So they ran and hid in the basement. And from surprisingly, the police didn't seem to make that many arrests from this. But it just kind of petered itself out. And after the violence, Mayor Charles A. Bruch convinced Mr. Gerhardt to meet with J.W. Marks, who was one of the textile workers organizers.
Okay.
So distinctly telling him to negotiate with the AFL, not the IWW.
Oh, I didn't even think of that shit. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
So Marx responded saying that he wouldn't meet with Gerhardt unless the factory was shut down. So that was good on him. And Gerhardt actually relented and declared that the factory operations would cease. So
wow.
By the end of the day, after a street brawl in the morning and throwing bricks at windows in the afternoon, they did actually succeed in getting the mill to shut down.
Yeah.
And negotiations began at Gerhardt. And so finally they had some progress. Duplan was still basically stonewalling the strikers, though, refusing to meet with them at all.
Okay.
So they laid out their demands publicly, instead saying that they wanted wages increased by a range of 10 to 40%. 40% was for the workers who were making less than $1 a day. They wanted them to get a 40% raise, which that's fair enough.
Sure.
They wanted a complete abolition of the fining system, which, again, that's fair.
Yes. Very fair.
They wanted to end summary dismissals at work, which, from my understanding, basically they wanted to set up like a grievance procedure rather than the foreman
just
coming
fired
in and just being like, yeah, get the fuck out of here.
Okay. That's fair too. These, like, I'm okay with this so far.
These are all like pretty basic demands.
Yeah.
And they also wanted better sanitary conditions throughout the entire factory.
We would like a bathroom.
Yeah, just probably something along those lines. Which, again, listening to
Amazon
workers,
hey!
I have a 15-minute break. My bathroom is 2.5 miles away. What the fuck do I do?
You joke, but if you've ever seen one of those Amazon warehouses, they are 2.5 miles long.
Yeah. No,
Holy
it's insane.
Shit. Holy shit.
But what they do have are special booths for you to cry in. Which is it's anyway.
Honest to God, you know how much those like Zen booths cost? They cost like $20,000. Honest to God. Someone's making some change, man.
Have we looked into whether or not Bezos owns a Zen booth building company? Okay, so
just let that one sink in that this shit is still happening. This was 1913.
Yeah.
It's 2024. This is this is 111 years, right?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, we've come so far, but have we? Not really.
Yeah.
But hey, man.
And
the past is a blueprint for the future.
Yep.
If I may wax philosophical for a minute. So I mean, it's good that we're learning about. What are you gonna say, Gabe? You have a quote.
I'm trying to remember. It's the Utah Phillips quote of
Every episode has to have a Utah Phillips quote.
Well, I mean, he's wobbly daddy. Or wobbly grandpa. Sorry.
Grandpappy.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was, but it's something basically like wobbly songs are a better description of history than you'll ever get from a textbook.
Yeah.
Which like is not terribly wrong.
Yeah.
So getting back to the strike, they had just won one of their first major victories in the whole thing. That they got Gerhardt to shut down and start negotiating. And now it was just a waiting game that they had to outlast the bosses.
Yeah.
And at this point, they were also putting calls out in Solidarity, the wobbly newspaper, calling for donations to be sent to Hazleton to support them because they were probably all running low on cash.
Yeah. As you said, wobblies are fucking broke.
Yes. Almost as a rule. But especially in this period where like the organizers were just hopping on trains going from town to town.
Yeah.
Organizing on the side. So both strikes dragged into March. And then Daniels and Gergatz, the two guys who got arrested, had their day in court in front of a grand jury on Friday, March 14th. it claimed that both of the Wilkes-Barre, no, I can never remember how to pronounce.
I pronounce it Wilkes-Barre.
Wilkes-Barre?
But from people who live there, they pronounce it, from some people that I know, they pronounce it Wilkes-Barre. But like, I've learned it as Wilkes-Barre, as someone who's not from there, though. So, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, Gabe. I don't know.
I've heard
it's Wilkes-Barre. Fuck them.
Wilkes-Barre and Wilkes-Barre and Wilkes-Barre. I think it all depends on like how much dip you have in your lip at the time that you're saying it. So Wilkes-Barre Evening News claimed that both Garagutz and Daniels were connected to the IWW, and also that Garagutz was a veteran of the Lawrence textile strike, or that Daniels was a veteran of the Lawrence textile strike and a known national organizer for the Wobblies. The timeline that they laid out in court was also really messy, because it claimed that the strike at Gerhardt was about to be settled on the 28th when the riot broke out. But negotiations at Gerhardt didn't start until after the riot on the 28th.
Whose argument was this?
This is what was entered into the record in court from the bosses who were charging Daniels and Garagutz with incitement to riot.
Okay.
So that was an interesting little tidbit to find there, that they completely flipped the timeline.
Yeah.
Of how these events went down.
I mean, mistrial? I'm no expert here, but I don't,
it's
right out of the starting gate. You're fucking up just with the dates. You're reversing them. So,
but you're forgetting it's 1913. And it's an upstanding businessman's word versus the word of two wobbly organizers.
Very true. I mean, who would you believe?
Exactly.
Fair folks of Philadelphia and surrounding world.
So, from what I can tell, I'm
gonna get that over, Gabe. I'm getting that over. I'm putting that on a fucking shirt.
What would you believe?
No, Philadelphia and the surrounding world.
Oh yeah.
But what would you believe? That's a good line.
Yeah.
What would you believe?
So the next Monday, March 16th, it was announced that, and I should say, I couldn't find any resolution from Daniels and Garagotz's trial, so I'm assuming they were convicted of incitement to riot.
All right.
Because basically the newspaper stopped talking about it afterwards. So the next Monday, March 16th, it was announced that the Gerhardt mill would reopen the next day under a heavy police protection.
Oh, no.
And this was pretty much an effort to break the strike, because can't say for certain, obviously, but it seems to me that they wanted to cause a street fight so that they could arrest everyone again, and get like the mayor to really clamp down on the pickets. So on Tuesday the 17th, 1,200 strikers from both Duplan and Gerhardt were out to prevent engineers, clerks, and firemen from returning to the Gerhardt mills. So these were everyone who would be needed to get the steam system back online and get everything tooled back up to be ready for production the next day.
Okay.
So that pretty much immediately turned into a street fight. And the police came in and started arresting as many people as they could. The mayor immediately issued a statement condemning the violence and threatening to use the police to maintain the peace, and warned that any further violence would result in more police presence. And that same day, Gerhardt sent 22 cutters, who were those are the people who are actually cutting out the fabric that would get sewn into garments. And that was one of the highest paid positions in a textile mill or in a garment factory. But so Gerhardt sent 22 of them to Pottstown to work in a new factory that he had just set up there, because he was basically, while the strike was going on, he was trying to move production over to Pottstown.
Oh, you mother. God.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should listen to the rest of the episode, Gabe. I got questions, but I think you might answer them.
Okay. So I'll keep going. On that day, he also then refused to meet with J.W. Manning of the Garment Workers Union, whom he was supposed to be negotiating with this entire time.
Yeah.
So he not only basically got the riot that he wanted, which prompted the mayor to condemn everything, he was moving production out of the city anyway. And then he decided he didn't need to actually negotiate with the union because he figured he was going to win.
Okay, you kind of answered my question.
Yeah.
So it was a foregone conclusion that he was definitely moving production to Pottstown? Like he was definitely moving the factory eventually?
Not in its entirety, I don't think.
Okay.
Because from what I can tell, he had enough production demand to have both factories operational.
Okay.
But he probably, from what I can tell, it seems like he sped up the development in Pottstown to get to undercut this strike. Because rather than hiring and training 22 cutters in Pottstown, he just moved them out of Hazleton.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, then unfortunately, the police tactics seem to have worked, and by Thursday, March 20th, it was reported that the strikers had withdrawn. They were no longer picketing out front of Duplan or Gerhardt, but there was still a very heavy police and state constabulary presence around both buildings. And then on the 22nd, in order to raise the spirit of the strikers, William Big Bill Haywood came to Hazleton.
Shit.
Yep. Came to speak to them and basically reiterated that their fight was just like the fight up in Lawrence, and that if they stuck together and kept solidarity, they would win.
All right, Big Bill.
Yeah.
I love a good Big Bill surprise appearance. Yeah. We because we haven't really talked about the IWW that much. That he,
I think he came up in one of the textile strikes because he would help out other unions too.
Okay.
But I think that's it. We haven't talked about him in relation to the Wobblies.
Yeah. I did talk to him. Gabe. I talk to the dead often. No, I've talked about him on one of my episodes. I remember there was a tangent I went on. I think it was the baseball strike.
I think so.
Because I was talking about the IWW because it had to do with the guy who who's the judge on the IWW's trials. Mm-hmm. And I think we mentioned him a little bit there too. So
yeah, unfortunately.
Oh shit.
Despite Big Bill's speech, things started to go south very quickly. And I can't say for certain that this is what happened, but I'm going to be sharing my conspiracy theory.
All right. I love when this happens.
So on March 26th, the strike at Gerhardt was ended. This was the first major blow against the strike in Hazleton, and there was no formal agreement that had been made public. It was just declared that the strike was over. And there didn't appear to be any kind of negotiating committee or any kind of democratic process around ending the strike. It was just declared over.
Okay.
So full operations resumed at Gerhardt on March 26th. On April 2nd, the strike at Duplan was declared over. Not by the IWW.
What?
But by the Textile Workers Union of the American Federation of Labor.
Okay.
The workers at Duplan were granted wage increases from 10 to 30%, a reduction in working hours from 58 to 55 hours per week. None of their other demands were met. The same day, Gerhardt announced a 10% wage increase and the establishment of profit sharing. And none of the other demands from the Gerhardt workers were met. Now, again, both of these strikes were settled by the Garment Workers Union, but the Duplan strike was led by the Wobblies.
Yes.
So on April 7th, the industrial workers of the world declared that they would still fight and keep Duplan under strike. And they were out in force that morning to picket the plant and try and induce the workers who were going back to work thinking that the strike was over to stay out on strike. This led to 2 arrests of pickets who had struck one of the girls entering the plant.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Later that day, as a show of force and in protest of the arrests, the IWW held a parade marching through town, carrying both the American flag and an IWW banner.
Okay.
5 of the paraders were arrested for disorderly conduct and desecration of the American flag.
What?
Apparently, they had pinned an IWW slogan onto the American flag, and the police arrested them for it.
Oh God.
Yeah. This is back in the day where you could actually get arrested for violating flag code, whereas today you'd get pulled over by a cop car that'll have a thin blue line flag on it, despite the fact that violates flag code. Anyway,
my favorite are the people who have. I mean, it's mostly on trucks. Let's be real here, people.
Yeah.
The thin blue line flag and also a "Do not tread on me" flag as well.
Yes,
and you're kind of it's like a bit of an oxymoron there.
The thin blue line Punisher skull.
Oh, yes.
That's the peak right there.
That is the icing on the cake. It's like, have you ever never read the fucking comics?
Yeah. To the point where they put in the comics Frank Castle saying that he would shoot anyone with that sticker.
That's bad.
Okay.
Born in the USA, I was. It's the most patriotic song. That Unfortunate Son.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they have to be blasting Rage Against the Machine while doing all of this.
When the fuck did Rage Against the Machine become political?
I don't know.
When did this happen?
Somewhere between the founding of the band and the second after that. Okay, so my theory on all of this is that J.W. Manning, who is the organizer from the Textile Workers Union, came in and did a backroom handshake deal with both Duplan and Gerhardt, because that gave the workers some concessions, but more importantly for the AFL, kept the IWW out of Hazleton.
Yeah.
And because they were in a constant turf war. So even though the IWW was supporting the AFL strike,
oh my God,
the Textile Workers Union wanted them out of town.
I can see this, Gabe.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
And there were some shitty tactics like this that were going on at the time. So
yeah, I mean, nobody, the company, the mayor, the AFL, apparently, nobody wanted the IWW there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad that the AFL would be like that. Like they didn't want them cutting in on their action, you know.
Yeah.
But they had their own way of doing things. So
yeah, and it was interesting because I didn't expect this conclusion to this strike, because I learned about this strike from seeing it in like a list of IWW labor actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so then looking into it, I didn't realize that this was really like the middle of the IWW AFL turf war, just showing up in Hazleton. Yeah, it was really shitty. And in the end, like, regardless of what you think of either organization, the people that actually get hurt by all of it were the workers.
Yeah.
Who
the 7-year-olds.
Yeah, like these 13-year-olds who got a reduction of 3 hours a week in their work.
Congratulations, Timmy.
Yeah. And probably a reduction in pay as well. That they weren't. I mean, they got a 30%, or they could have gotten a 30% raise, but I don't know if that really offcuts the 3 hours lost work. So, anyway, that was the Hazleton textile strike of 1913.
Okay. I love an episode that starts with child labor and ends with child labor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, this is Gabe, and thanks for listening to the Labor Jawn podcast. So, for now, we live in a system called capitalism. And under this system, you have to exchange currency for goods and or services. And to that end, Sam and I put a lot of time, effort, and a fair chunk of our own money into keeping this podcast available and generally free. And if you'd like to help support us doing that, you can give us some money at patreon.com/laborjawn. And if you choose to do so, we'll give you a fancy button every year, some cool merch, and an extra episode once a month, whenever possible, because life is hard, because capitalism. Anyway, we'd really appreciate your support if you've got a few bucks to spare. Also, if you happen to be a member of a union, and you want your fellow union members to learn about local labor history, we do commission work, like presentations, pamphlets, that kind of stuff. So if that sounds cool, you can shoot us an email at laborjawn@gmail.com, or contact us through laborjawn.com, or message us on social media, or whatever's most convenient for you. But if that sounds interesting, feel free to reach out. And anyway, thanks for listening. Solidarity. Have fun.